interested in what you're doing. And I do that by not staying just in repatriation, because sooner or later you run out of what am I going to do with this. I've written 36 articles on repatriation that have been published. There's only been 37 in the world published. And if I kept pushing that thing, all of a sudden I'd say, I don't have anything else to say about repatriation. I'm 65 years old, I'm just going to stop. And the answer is no. Every year I take some topic that I know absolutely nothing about. I wrote a paper on deforestation, the impact of deforestation, and what was business's role in that. And it took me a year to research who was involved in cutting down the Brazilian jungle, da-da-da-da. But what I did was I learned a lot, and I got really excited about it. I really understood what was going on, and it energized me. The next year I took a project, I said, okay, let's talk about organ transplants. Now what does that have to do with business? It's a big business problem. What's the business problem? It's a distribution problem. How do I get the organs to the people? And I sat down and analyzed, how do you do that, and came up with a methodology. And then I studied a topic on banded products sold globally. Why do we do that? Then I looked at counterfeit products. The drugs in the United States, 10% of the drugs that are sold, that are prescription drugs, are counterfeit. So every 10 pills you take, one of them doesn't have anything in it. Is that an important business thing? And it's a distribution problem again. So all I'm saying to you is, to keep the ideas flowing, I have to have a whole bunch of different topics that I'm looking at. My field, what I do is international human resource management. I've never had a course in it. I stumbled into it. I'm trained as a marketing person. So what I said was, gee, it's really strange we can't get people to manage our businesses overseas. I wonder why not. Again, this introspection of thinking about things, saying, what's the reason for that? Why can't women work overseas? Oh, you can't send them to the Middle East because it's against the religion, it's against... And the answer is bullshit. Okay? What I was looking at, the throughput is, how do I solve the problem of sending people overseas and bringing them back successfully? Another area I've worked at has been in selection, the staffing of overseas assignments. How do you pick somebody that's going to go overseas? 25% of them say no, 25% of them commute, and about 40% of them fail. So we've got three out of the 4 behaviors we're going to see are bad. Can I figure out a better way to select them? And I think I came up with a better way to select them. So what I'm trying to do is I'm identifying constructs, I'm identifying issues, I'm identifying problems to say to you guys, go test it. Okay? And most of you will be trained to do this. Here's the thing, here's the sample, here's the statistics, and here's what I found. I don't mind that at all. I just don't do it. The theorist is trying to look for structure. How do I take this problem and put together a justification for it? You've heard of grounded theory. Europeans use grounded theory. They'll go out and they'll study a company for 10 years. And they'll come back and say, here's why IKEA was successful. Let me show you the theory that explains it. And there are people like me that take this idea and say, okay, I've got an idea that I'm looking for a theory. And I've got a book outline. And the book outline that I'm thinking about doing takes 150 different theories and gives you 3 pages of explanation of what it's about and how to use it, and then the key references for it. And to me, it would be like a Bible. Okay, I'm doing something, I just looked through it, oh, here's a theory that might work. So the theorist is somebody that puts structure to the idea that I developed. I've got a real good friend, one of my students, does this. I'll come up with a crazy idea, I came up with one last year, it's called patriation, which is you have multiple locations that you're going to be expatriated to. How do I bring you back to the home country? I can't just bring you back from here. There's some sort of a sequence of events that I've got to go through to bring you back. I told Millerad about it. He came up with a theory. The paper's written, and it makes sense. If I had just put it out there by myself, it wouldn't make any sense. The integration is kind of like Porter, where they'll bring things from other disciplines and put it into your discipline. There's a guy at Wharton, Paul Green. Paul's a marketing guy. He's the most quoted marketing person. He's never written a marketing article, ever. What he does is he goes into statistics and takes statistical techniques and puts them into a marketing context and says, here's how you use it. And everybody looks for Paul's articles because that's what his value was. We don't have to go sifting around looking for this stuff. So when you talk about yourself, say, I want to do this, or I want to do this, and then say, then I am going to be a conceptualist, and this is what I'm going to do. Doesn't mean every once in a while you don't end up over here, but recognize that there's a certain set of competencies you have to do this. Okay? And again, one of those competencies for this particular thing is, like Sternberg, is be out of the mainstream of your discipline. These are the dreamers. These are the people you go, holy cow, where did that come from? In my opinion, and again, I do this with my PhD students, we have an oral defense. And the oral defense is you get tested orally over all the material that you've taken in class. You also have a written exam. But I'll walk in and I'll say, okay, give me the 5 best articles you've read while you were in the PhD program. And they kind of they get nervous. They put down 2 and they say, that's all I know. I said, you got to do 5. We're going to wait until you get them done. And they'll sit there and all of a sudden they get all 5 down. I'll take it back and I'll say, oh, Article 1 had no data in it. Article 2 had no data in it. Article 3 had no data. And normally 4 out of 5 articles have no data in it. What does that tell you? It tells you that this person had the biggest, these people had the biggest impact on the way you think. It wasn't this person, and I'm not knocking, I'm just saying this is the person that kind of defends what's going on. But the person that impacted was the one that came up with something that said, God, I never thought of product cannibalism. That's a really neat idea. Okay? So when you're thinking about who you want to be, think about it in one of these groups and work on your competencies. One of the things I do, which is, again, this is just a little thing, every Saturday morning I come in, I sit down, every Saturday morning, I sit down and I spend 4 hours doing what? Playing. I play on the computer. I don't go to the porno pages. I'll go to, Google Scholar and I'll put in a word. I'll put in a word, whatever it may be. And I just start looking at articles and I'll bounce around until I find something. That's why this evil thing kind of came to me. I just thought, counterproductive really doesn't get you. I'm interested in the people that are bad. They're just evil at heart. And a friend of mine, Jerry Ferris, and I've read some articles on destructive leaders. Are there people that really put their goals above the organization? The answer is yes. Just look at politicians. They do it all the time. How can I identify when somebody's a destructive leader? What do I do if I've got a destructive? What do I do if I just have an evil person in the organization? And you say, well, fire him. The answer is, you can't always do that. What happens if he's the entrepreneur that started the business? Okay? So what we're doing here is we're trying to conceptualize what's the problems that the organizations have today. Again, I'm developing knowledge and I'm a conceptualist. That's where I have my strength. For the first 10 years of my career, I tried to do this, and I was terrible. I took the STAT classes, but they didn't need a damn thing. I mean, again, I should have been studying a foreign language. To me, it just didn't. I know how to do it, but it didn't click. When somebody just said, "Well, just sit back at your desk," as a friend of mine, he just said, "Just sit back at your desk and look at the ceiling and think." And I would go down to my office. I was in the basement at the time. I go down to my office and I look at the ceiling. All of a sudden, ideas started popping into my head. Now, it helped because I had a window that I saw all the girls walking up to the building. That was beneficial to it. But I just sat, and people would walk by and say, "All he does is look at the ceiling." But then I would sit down and I would write down an idea. And then I would draw. Every paper I write has diagrams in it. Why is that? Every paper I have has 4 diagrams. Why? I'm visualizing my idea because I'm dyslexic. So what I do is I learn by pictures. And you guys that work with data, you have 4 tables that you just write from one table to the next table to the next table. I have 4 pictures that I write from one picture to the next picture to the next picture. It was a technique that I used to just make me a better conveyor of information. Because I'm not a great writer, but I can visualize things.